In the UK, insufficient supplies of salt have highlighted how important the supply chain is. Now, I'm joined by a supply chain expert, Professor Richard Wilding. Now, Richard, let's just clear up first. What's a supply chain and why is it so important?
Supply chain is really a network of companies. It's all the companies that come together to deliver a particular product or service. For example, if it's a food product, it could involve the farmers, the people who actually move the grain to a particular location where it is then processed, and then right through to the supermarket, and even to some extent back into your home as well.
Key question, why is it so important?
Well, why it is so important is because at the end of the day, for our economy to function, relationships between companies are absolutely critical. Nobody now does everything. Well, very few companies do absolutely everything. We're dependent on other organisations to ensure that our organisation, as it were, can make some money.
And I guess supermarkets are a classic case of that.
Yes, very much so. Without, if you like, the various supply chains and companies supplying into them, the whole supermarket value proposition, the value that they deliver, would be undermined because they wouldn't be able to have this incredible amount of variety on the shelves, which actually attracts their customer base into a location like that.
So links in the chain are very important. It can cost you a lot of money if it goes wrong.
Very much so. I mean, in fact, it costs so much money that now even the stock exchange is looking at supply chain problems. Research has actually shown that you can get a 20% fall in shareholder value or fall in your share price if you have issues within your supply chain. So this is very important to address this and make sure that you actually manage this in an appropriate way.
Now, you've done quite a bit of research in this area. What are the main causes that these links don't hold together very well?
Well, one of the things that we often find, and that there are a number of particular issues, but one big issue is the whole issue of speaking a common language within the supply chain. It might sound absurd, but even if we're actually managing supply chains globally and using the English language, for example, in the English language, yes means yes. However, in other cultures and in other languages, using the word yes can have sort of multiple levels of interpretation. Now that's talking about our vocal language, but within the supply chains we're using a language of data as well. And it's very important that we have a standard data language which is used throughout the supply chain. If, for example, electronic data is not being transmitted or shared in the correct way, it can create confusion and errors and actually undermine the performance of the supply chain.
And as you said, that's important because errors lead to cost, lead to insufficient supply of goods, leads to unhappiness on the consumer's part and lack of profit.
Very much so, and some recent research which we actually did on something called data crunch, and this was with GS1 UK. Now GS1 UK, they focus on the application of standards within supply chain environments and other environments. And what we actually found out was inconsistencies of up to 80%. So 80% of the data was inconsistent between various supply chain partners. We were then able to sort of take a very conservative guess at how much this was costing the industry. And it worked out that this was going to cost the retail industry around about £1 billion over the next 5 years. So by actually just getting a common language in place and ensuring everybody has the right data in the right place at the right time and they're using consistent data, we can improve, for example, the whole competitive position of that particular environment.
So in these straitened times, that's very important.
Very much so, and I think it's one of those things that from a supply chain perspective every company can actually do. Every company can start to sort of look at the, if you like, the language of their business. Is their language compatible with other businesses' languages? Because if we can get consistency in the use of data, that's going to actually really improve things for for everybody. Cranfield is working with GS1 on a number of awards. There's going to be some annual awards on really the use of standards within an industry, and we're very happy to support that because we're very much into trying to encourage the use of, if you like, this common language across different sectors and across different business environments. And of course, ultimately, what would be nice is that we can also apply this globally. And GS1 is a global organisation, so that's an excellent way of sort of embedding these things.
So what would the first step be then in getting this common language?
I think the first step is understand what standards and common languages already exist. Go to organisations like GS1, you can find them on the web. You will probably already be using some of their standards. For example, you know, if you have a barcode, they administer a lot of the barcode numbers which are actually used. So everybody knows that that barcode relates to a specific product. So understand the language of business, and then just make sure that you talk and discuss with your supply partners and your customers what language they're actually using. There's no point in me communicating information in English if somebody else is actually speaking in Italian or something like that, because we've got to make sure we get a common understanding of how we're going to manage that supply chain.
Make it sound easy. I suspect it isn't as easy as that.
There's a lot of cultural issues that we need to overcome. At the end of the day, it's change management. There's cultural issues, there's change management issues which come into play, there's information systems issues that come into play, but generally what we find the biggest issue which needs to be overcome is really building that relationship and creating trust within the supply chain. If we're looking at this, get consumer focus, make sure that you share data, make sure you have common processes, common key performance indicators, make sure you're also able to integrate your systems and processes with your supply chain partners, and also make sure you've got some flexibility in there as well, because things don't always go as planned. But key thing is build trust, and the only way you're going to build trust is by working with those other parties.
Richard, thank you.